You got up this morning, used the bathroom twice before you'd even had coffee, and told yourself that's just what happens now. Maybe your ankles look a little puffier by evening than they used to. Maybe your last blood panel had a number circled that your doctor moved past quickly. Nothing dramatic, just small signals adding up. Most people your age have been told to drink more water and cut back on salt. That advice isn't wrong, but it leaves out something most 15-minute appointments never get to. What you eat in the hours before you fall asleep matters to your kidneys specifically, not just your waistline. There's no billing code for a doctor to sit with you for 20 minutes and explain evening eating patterns, so that conversation usually doesn't happen. I want to be upfront about how I built this list, because a lot of health content ranks things by how exciting they sound rather than by how much evidence actually backs them. I ranked these 5 fruits by the strength and specificity of the kidney-related research behind each one, not by popularity, not by flavor, and not by how good they'd sound in a headline. Some of what I share today comes from small human studies, some from animal research that hasn't been confirmed in people yet, and I'll tell you clearly which is which, because you deserve to know the difference. And the fruit at the very top of this list isn't a superfood you've never heard of. It's something already sitting in most grocery stores. And it has the most specific, kidney-relevant data of anything we'll cover, including an association with meaningfully lower rates of chronic kidney disease in people who eat it regularly. Before we get into it, tell me in the comments, how many times do you typically wake up at night to use the bathroom, and has that changed in the last few years? I read these, and they genuinely shape what I cover in future videos. Let's start at number 5. Number 5 is watermelon. And don't let its spot at the bottom fool you. This is one of the few fruits that's both kidney-friendly and something almost every grocery store carries year-round. And most people are eating it in ways that don't actually help their kidneys much. Here's the belief I want to challenge first. Most people assume all melons are risky for kidney health because they're sweet and full of water, so they either avoid them or eat them without a second thought. Neither approach uses what the research actually shows. According to data compiled by Fresenius Kidney Care, one of the largest kidney dialysis and care providers in the country, watermelon stands out among melons specifically because it's low in potassium, while still delivering meaningful amounts of vitamin A, vitamin C, magnesium, and lycopene, a red pigment antioxidant. That matters because potassium is the mineral damaged kidneys struggle most to clear from the blood when kidney function drops. Even normal potassium intake can build up to dangerous levels, which is why people with chronic kidney disease are often told to keep their daily potassium intake under roughly 3 grams. Think of your kidneys like a water filtration plant with adjustable filter mesh. In a young, healthy plant, the mesh is fine, and forgiving it can handle a wide range of mineral loads without backing up. As kidney function declines with age or disease, that mesh effectively coarsens and slows down, and minerals like potassium that used to pass through easily start to pool. Watermelon is one of the few genuinely sweet, satisfying fruits that doesn't add much to that pooling problem. This matters more the older you get because kidney filtration rate, how efficiently your kidneys clear waste from the blood, declines gradually and predictably with age, even without a specific disease. A process sometimes tracked through a lab measure called estimated glomerular filtration rate, or EGFR. A lower EGFR means less margin for error with high potassium foods. Picture a woman in her early 70s who has been managing early-stage kidney disease for 2 years. Her nephrologist had already told her to watch her potassium, but she assumed that meant cutting fruit out almost entirely, which left her feeling deprived and snacking on processed crackers instead in the evening. When she learned that a half-cup portion of watermelon was actually one of the safer, sweet options on her plan, she swapped her evening cracker habit for a small watermelon portion. Instead, a change her dietitian confirmed fit comfortably within her potassium targets at her next visit. If you want to try this tonight, cut a wedge of chilled watermelon into small cubes, the kind that are cold enough to make your teeth ache slightly, bright pink red, and give a little crunch of ice-cold juice with each bite. Stick to about a half cup if you're watching potassium or fluid intake, since watermelon is also over 90% water and can add up quickly if you're on a fluid restriction. The sweetness is clean and light, not syrupy, which makes it easier to eat slowly instead of grabbing a whole plate. Pair it with a few fresh mint leaves torn on top. Mint doesn't add meaningful potassium, and the aromatic oils make the fruit feel more like a dessert than a snack, which helps if you're trying to replace an actual dessert habit in the evening. The fruit at number 4 works through a completely different mechanism, one that has to do with slow, steady fiber rather than water content, and it might be the most overlooked fruit in your own kitchen. Number 4 is the apple. And I mean that in the most literal, unglamorous sense, the same apple sitting in your fruit bowl right now. Most people think of apples as a general, healthy snack, without knowing why they specifically fit a kidney-conscious diet. The overlooked detail is potassium and phosphorus content. According to kidney nutrition resources including Medicine Net's clinical review of kidney-friendly fruits, apples are consistently classified as low in both potassium and phosphorus compared to many other common fruits, while still delivering meaningful fiber and vitamin C. Phosphorus matters here for a similar reason to potassium. When kidneys can't clear it efficiently, excess phosphorus can pull calcium out of bone and contribute to vascular and bone complications over time, a complication nephrologists specifically watch for in later-stage kidney disease. Here's the everyday analogy. Think of your kidney's job with phosphorus, like a small-town sanitation crew handling trash pickup. A healthy crew can handle whatever volume of trash the town produces without falling behind. As the crew shrinks, as kidney function declines, the same volume of trash starts piling up on the curb. Low-phosphorus foods are simply lighter trash days for that shrinking crew. This connects directly to a concept called sarcopenia's quieter cousin in kidney literature, mineral bone disease, where declining kidney function disrupts the balance of calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D that keeps bones and blood vessels healthy. Choosing lower phosphorus fruits in the evening is one small, controllable lever in that balance, especially since evening is often when people reach for processed snacks that are far higher in phosphorus additives than fresh fruit. Consider a composite case typical of what shows up in nephrology clinics. A retired man in his late 60s, recently diagnosed with stage 3 chronic kidney disease, whose prior routine was an evening bowl of salted mixed nuts and cheese while watching television, both notably higher in phosphorus than fresh fruit. His dietitian didn't ask him to give up his evening ritual entirely, just to swap the cheese and nuts most nights for a sliced apple with a thin spread of natural peanut butter, which is a comparatively fruit-forward, lower phosphorus substitution. At his next quarterly panel, his phosphorus level had moved back into target range, a change his care team attributed to the overall dietary shift, of which the fruit swap was one piece. To try this tonight, slice a crisp apple, something like a Honeycrisp or Fuji, into thin wedges. Leave the skin on, since much of the fiber and antioxidant content sits just under it. The texture should snap cleanly, not give a soft, mealy give, and the smell should be faintly sweet and slightly tart. If the natural sweetness alone isn't satisfying, a light sprinkle of cinnamon adds warmth without adding sodium or potassium, the way many packaged toppings would. Pair sliced apple with a small handful of walnuts, if your potassium and phosphorus levels allow it. Walnuts add anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats that work on a different pathway than the apple's fiber, giving you two mechanisms of support in one snack rather than one repeated twice. If you're managing later-stage kidney disease, check with your renal dietitian on portion size for the nuts specifically, since nuts run higher in phosphorus than most fruit. The next fruit doesn't work by staying out of your kidney's way. It actively intervenes in a blood pressure pathway that researchers have only studied properly in the last 2 decades. Number 3 is red grapes, and specifically, it's a compound in their skin that's done something notable in early kidney research, resveratrol. The common belief here is that grapes are just sugar water in a nice package, fine as an occasional treat, nothing more. That belief misses a specific plant compound concentrated in red grape skin. Resveratrol is a polyphenol antioxidant, and according to registered dietitians interviewed by Eating Well, including renal dietitian Irini Hetrick, red grapes are specifically called out for containing this compound as one of their standout kidney-relevant nutrients, on top of being naturally low in potassium. The research behind resveratrol and the kidneys is still largely preclinical, and I want to be honest about that rather than oversell it. In laboratory studies on rats with severe hypertension-related kidney damage, resveratrol treatment improved kidney filtration function, reduced the leakage of protein into urine, an early warning sign of kidney damage in humans too, and helped restore the kidney's own internal antioxidant defenses. That's animal data, not a human clinical trial, so think of it as a strong signal worth acting on through food rather than a proven cure. Here's the mechanism in everyday terms. Imagine your kidney's tiny filtering units, called nephrons, as thousands of individual coffee filters working around the clock. High blood pressure over years is like running scalding water through paper filters daily. Eventually, the paper gets scorched and starts letting particles through that it used to catch, which shows up as protein leaking into urine. Resveratrol appears, at least in these animal models, to act like a protective coating that helps the filter paper resist that scorching. This matters specifically for aging kidneys because of a concept called reduced renal reserve, the kidney's shrinking margin for handling extra stress, including blood pressure spikes, as filtering units are gradually lost with age. Younger kidneys have redundant capacity to absorb a bad blood pressure day. Older kidneys have less buffer, which is part of why blood pressure control becomes more tightly linked to kidney health after midlife. Picture a composite patient familiar to many primary care clinics. A woman in her early 60s with borderline high blood pressure who had been told for years to watch her sodium, full stop, without much discussion of what to add to her diet rather than only what to subtract. Swapping her usual evening ice cream for a small bowl of frozen red grapes gave her a genuinely satisfying, cold, sweet dessert substitute with a much better nutrient profile, a change her physician noted alongside modest improvement in her blood pressure readings over the following months, among other lifestyle adjustments she made at the same time. To try this tonight, rinse a cup of red or purple grapes and freeze them for about 2 hours. Frozen grapes have a firm, almost sorbet-like bite, cold enough to numb your tongue slightly, with a burst of concentrated sweetness as they thaw slightly in your mouth. This is a genuinely effective stand-in for ice cream in the hour before bed. And because grapes are low in potassium, they're one of the more forgiving fruit choices, even for many people managing chronic kidney disease. Though, as always, confirm your individual limits with your own care team. Pair frozen grapes with the apple from item 4 in the same week rather than the same sitting. Both work on overlapping anti-inflammatory pathways, so rotating between low-potassium, antioxidant-rich fruits gives your kidneys variety in the specific plant compounds they're exposed to, rather than relying on just one. So far, you've learned that watermelon and apples give your kidneys a lighter mineral load to process, and that grape skin resveratrol shows real promise in animal studies for protecting the kidney's filtering units from blood pressure-related damage. You could stop the video right here and already be making better evening choices than most people. But item 2 works on something almost nobody connects to kidney health at all: your sleep architecture itself, through a documented human clinical trial, not an animal study showing measurable changes in how fast you fall asleep and how often you wake during the night. If nobody has sat you down and explained how something as simple as sleep quality feeds back into your kidney function, tap subscribe, because that's exactly the kind of connection this channel exists to walk through every week for free. Hit like if you've learned something in the last few minutes your last appointment never covered. And if you know someone managing early kidney disease who also complains about restless nights, send them this video today. Number 2 is kiwi fruit. And this is the fruit with the most rigorous human research behind it on this entire list. It just isn't research that was originally about kidneys at all. Most people who've heard anything about kiwi and sleep assume it's folk wisdom or marketing from the kiwi industry. That skepticism is fair and worth naming directly. The most cited kiwi sleep study was partially funded by a kiwi fruit distributor, which is a real limitation to disclose rather than bury. But the study itself was a real, peer-reviewed clinical trial. Researchers at Taipei Medical University, in a study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2011, had 24 adults with self-reported sleep problems eat 2 kiwi fruits 1 hour before bed every night for 4 weeks. Using sleep diaries, a validated sleep quality questionnaire, and wristband activity monitors, they measured real changes. Sleep onset latency, how long it took participants to fall asleep, dropped by 35.4%. Time spent awake after initially falling asleep dropped by 28.9%. Total sleep time rose by 13.4%, and sleep efficiency rose by 5.41%. Those are the actual published numbers, not rounded up for effect. And the researchers themselves noted this was a small, self-controlled study that warrants further confirmation, so I'm not going to pretend it's the final word either. Here's why this connects to kidney health specifically. And it's a real physiological link, not a stretch. Separate research on nocturia needing to urinate at night has found that poor sleep and disrupted nighttime physiology are tied to how the kidneys handle sodium and fluid overnight. A narrative review on late-night eating patterns describes how disrupted sleep can interact with renal sodium retention and fluid balance through hormonal pathways involving cortisol and blood glucose regulation. Separately, a large cohort study of elderly men found that higher fruit and vegetable intake overall was associated with meaningfully reduced nighttime urinary symptoms, including nocturia, compared to more moderate intake. Kiwi sitting at the intersection of documented sleep benefit and kidney-friendly fruit profile, it's also naturally low in the sodium that worsens fluid retention, is what earns it this high a spot. Think of your kidneys at night like the night shift at a factory that's supposed to slow production and do maintenance work while everyone sleeps. When sleep itself is fragmented, waking every hour, tossing for long stretches before drifting off, that night shift gets constantly interrupted rather than running its steady, low-key maintenance cycle. Better, more continuous sleep gives the kidneys a more predictable overnight rhythm to work within. This is especially relevant for aging bodies because of circadian rhythm disruption, the gradual weakening, with age, of the internal clock that used to cleanly separate high-activity daytime kidney function from low-activity nighttime kidney function. Research has found that kidney tissue has some of the strongest circadian gene expression of any organ in the body, second only to the liver, meaning kidney function genuinely runs on its own daily clock, a clock that gets easier to throw off as we get older. Picture someone in their late 60s who had been waking 3 or 4 times a night for over a year and whose doctor had attributed it mostly to normal aging without much further discussion. After learning about the Kiwi research, she started eating 2 kiwis an hour before bed for several weeks and kept a simple nightly log. Her subjective sense, consistent with what the original study measured, was falling asleep faster and waking less often, though I want to be clear that an individual's log isn't a controlled study, and results like this vary person to person. To try this tonight, peel 2 ripe kiwis. They should give slightly to gentle thumb pressure, smell faintly sweet and almost floral, and the green flesh should look glossy, not dull. Eat them plain about an hour before you plan to sleep. The texture is a mix of soft flesh and small crunchy seeds, with a flavor that's tart up front and sweet underneath. Some people find the fuzzy skin edible too, though most prefer it peeled. The last item on this list ties almost everything we've covered together, the same mineral caution as watermelon and apples, an antioxidant story even stronger than the grapes, and it happens to be the fruit most directly studied in connection with chronic kidney disease itself, not just a related symptom. Number 1 is the blueberry, and unlike everything else on this list, this is the fruit where the kidney connection has actually been studied directly in kidney tissue with a measurable link to disease risk in people, not just a related symptom like sleep or blood pressure. Here's the belief blueberries need to overturn. Most people file berries under generically healthy without knowing any specifics, which means they don't prioritize them over less kidney-relevant fruit choices. The specifics matter. According to a clinical nutrition review published by Medicine.net, 1 cup of blueberries contains just 114 milligrams of potassium and 18 milligrams of phosphorus, genuinely low numbers for a full cup of fruit, while still delivering a dense concentration of anthocyanins, the deep blue-purple pigment compounds responsible for the berry's color. And in coverage citing nutrition researcher Hernandez, a review connecting flavonoid-rich fruit intake, specifically berries and apples, to health outcomes, found this pattern was associated with a 16% lower risk of developing chronic kidney disease in people who ate more of these fruits regularly. I want to be precise about what that means. This is an association from observational research, not proof that blueberries alone prevent kidney disease, since people who eat more fruit generally also tend to have other healthier habits. But it's a real, specific, named number from real research, not an invented one, and it's more directly tied to kidney disease itself than anything else on this list. There's also direct laboratory evidence on mechanism. Animal studies using bilberry extract, a close relative of the blueberry rich in the same anthocyanin compounds, found significant reductions in both oxidative damage and inflammatory markers in kidney tissue exposed to toxic compounds. The protective effect worked 2 ways. The anthocyanins directly neutralized damaging molecules, and they also helped preserve the kidney's own built-in antioxidant defense systems, so the organ could keep protecting itself going forward. Think of your kidney cells like a factory floor with air filtration systems bolted to the ceiling. Oxidative stress, the buildup of unstable molecules called free radicals as we age, is like airborne grit, slowly clogging those filtration systems over years. Anthocyanins act less like extra filters and more like a maintenance crew that both clears existing grit and repairs the filtration system itself, so it keeps working on its own. This matters specifically for older bodies because oxidative stress and low-grade chronic inflammation both increase measurably with age, a 2-part process sometimes called inflammaging in the research literature, the gradual rise in baseline inflammation that accompanies aging even without acute illness, which compounds the wear on organs like the kidneys that filter blood continuously, every minute for an entire lifetime. Picture a composite case common in primary care. A woman in her late 70s with mildly reduced kidney function on routine labs whose doctor described it as expected for her age, without a specific dietary recommendation attached. She replaced her evening bowl of ice cream with a cup of fresh or frozen blueberries most nights. At her following annual panel, her kidney markers were stable rather than declining, further a reassuring finding, though her physician was careful to note that stability at this stage reflects many factors together, not one dietary swap in isolation. To try this tonight, take a cup of blueberries fresh if you have them, or frozen and slightly thawed, which gives them a soft, almost jam-like give between your teeth. The skin should be a deep blue-purple with a faint silvery dusting, called the bloom, which is a natural protective coating, not dirt or wax. The flavor is a mix of tart and sweet that intensifies slightly as they warm from frozen. Eat them plain or stir a handful into a small bowl of plain yogurt for a thicker, creamier evening snack. Pair blueberries with the walnuts mentioned back in item 4. If your mineral levels allow it, the combination gives you anthocyanin, antioxidants, and omega-3 anti-inflammatory fats, working on 2 separate inflammatory pathways at the same time, rather than the same pathway twice. And notice how this connects back to item 3's resveratrol story. Both compounds are polyphenol antioxidants working to protect blood vessels and filtering tissue from oxidative damage, just through slightly different chemical routes, which is part of why a genuinely varied, colorful fruit rotation tends to outperform any single miracle fruit approach. What we've covered today isn't really about a single perfect snack. It's about something more specific. The slow, cumulative kidney decline that, left unaddressed, can eventually mean dialysis, fluid restrictions, or a diet dictated entirely by lab numbers instead of choice. The fruits on this list won't reverse existing kidney disease, and nothing here replaces your nephrologist's guidance, but the research is genuinely there, showing that what and when you eat in the evening is one of the more controllable levers available to you, and it costs about as much as a bag of frozen blueberries. Here's what you can start tonight. First, if you have any diagnosed kidney disease, check your last lab panel or ask your care team what your personal daily potassium and phosphorus limits actually are. Most people have never been given exact numbers, only vague advice to watch it. Second, pick one fruit from this list, buy it this week, and replace one existing evening snack with it rather than adding it on top of what you already eat. Third, if you choose frozen fruit, buy the plain, unsweetened bags. Some frozen fruit blends are packed in syrup, which adds exactly the kind of sugar load you're trying to avoid before bed. Fourth, if nighttime bathroom trips are a real problem for you, try shifting your last full glass of water to at least 2 hours before bed, while keeping your total daily fluid intake the same, rather than cutting fluids overall. If you take a potassium-sparing diuretic, an ACE inhibitor, or an ARB blood pressure medication, talk to your doctor before significantly increasing high potassium fruit intake. These medications already reduce potassium excretion, and stacking a large increase in dietary potassium on top of them can push blood potassium into a dangerous range faster than most people expect. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering about the other side of this conversation, not what to eat before bed, but what's actually happening in your kidneys while you sleep that makes nighttime bathroom trips so common as you get older. There's a specific hormonal process involving a compound called antidiuretic hormone that naturally weakens with age, and understanding it changes how you think about evening fluids entirely. I've made a video walking through exactly that. I'll link it right here. Have you noticed a real difference in how you sleep or how often you wake at night since changing anything about your evening eating habits? Tell me in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone else watching this right now needs to hear.